The judge who approved the raid on Mar-a-Lago was once linked to Jeffrey Epstein and a major Obama donor. So we'll be talking just a bit about that, and we'll actually look up what the magistrate means about that, because that's something else that's been pointed out as we go through this. So we will be talking about what's going on with that and the new updates that we've seen about that. In other news, shooting in a baseball game happened in Atlanta yesterday, so we'll be talking about that, what that means, and what they will... Well, actually, I'm not going to talk too much about what they're going to try to push, because that one actually seems to have fallen to the wayside. Which tells me that the narrative behind the shooter was probably not politically convenient. But we'll talk about that. We'll go with that. Speaking of which, Eric Adams says that in retaliation for Texas sending illegal immigrants to New York City, a couple dozen, by the way, I think he's only got 53 in the entire of New York City, he is going to start sending buses full of New Yorkers down to Texas. How is that going to play out? Well, Eric, you got to listen to me when I tell you, if you take people out of your echo chamber, they might not vote for you anymore. But we'll talk about that if we get that far down the list. And Amazon has bought Roomba, and a lot of people are seeing a lot of problems with this. It is going to be all of this and more. Welcome back to Midterm Season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We're flying through the week. I looked at the weather for Wisconsin, by the way, southern Wisconsin, for the rest of the month. And the dog days, well, for this summer, the dog day of summer is over. It is supposed to be, for the rest of August at least, like super nice. Not a lot of humidity. Real low, high temperatures, like high 70s. Oops. Headphone check. High 70s, low 80s, low humidity for the rest of the month. I kind of wish we'd get some more rain out of it, but for a year where I have used the air conditioner a total of 10 times versus years where I've used it like every single day, I will take this. This is amazing. This is incredible. So, yeah, they say we're global warming. They say that it's going to be... We're going to be Tatooine, and every summer it's gotten hotter year over year. And yes, we have seen some heat waves. Even around here, that's when the mysterious 7 days that I used the air conditioner were at the beginning of the year. But, I mean, we look around this now, and it's like... It's typically, at this point in the year, back-to-back, non-stop air conditioning. You're so full of breathing recycled air, stale air, that's coming through an enclosed space. You don't know what real fresh air smells like, and we've got real fresh air out here. I don't know what the weather is like by you guys, but it's fantastic here. This is a big part of the reason that I do love living here in southern Wisconsin. But we can talk about the weather all day, or we can talk about the news. We've got some finance. We've got some Mar-a-Lago news. We've got some crime and punishment news, including a mysterious article where a teenager actually thought that discussing something on Facebook Messenger was private. Now, I will probably be following up with this a bit tomorrow as well, because there's been some rumbling about this particular story. And it seems that it's not the way that it's being presented by completely objective outlets like Forbes. So I do want to see what actually goes with this, and it seems like there might be some more foul play with this, but we will be talking about that as well. We'll be talking about a whole slew and litany of other things over here on Contemporary. So let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out all the great creators helping to build a better news experience for you. I'm talking about the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the Art Conservative, and the Porch Boys. Thank you guys all for the great showing last night. Going to congratulate John for submitting to the state and becoming governable, as Seawall put it when he put up the title. He hitched, kids. He can't do math, apparently. He doesn't know the difference between 28 and 32 hours, but hey, when you're in that wedded bliss, who can blame him? So thanks everybody for going and checking that out. Let's get down into finance and let's get started, because I know you guys all want to talk about the acronym that I have in the title and Mar-a-Lago. So let's see what happened with the Dow. The Dow was down yesterday to 32,774.41 in a whipsaw action throughout the day, winding up lower to 32,774.41. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. Now, it does look like we've eked out some gains on the futures off of this, because the inflation report's not going to be as bad as it used to be. And I'll talk about that when we talk about the inflation report, because they're gaslighting you again. And I've told you from the beginning that they were going to do this. Unless you see actual negative inflation, do remember that you are still doing inflation year over year on top of outrageous inflation from last year. This was the point last year where we were starting to get concerned, and I want you all to remember that. This is the point last year when we were starting to see 4.5%, 5.5%, 6.5% inflation month over month, year over year. And now you're going to be surprised when you might get 8.9% inflation on top of what was 6.5% inflation the year before. But we'll talk about that once we get to the CNBC article up here. Let's see what Bitcoin is doing. Your Bitcoin it took a significant drop throughout the day, and then it skyrocketed once again, bringing itself back up out of the drop to 23,190.60. Wondering what's actually caused the drop at the beginning of the day, but looking forward to people who had some of this into their portfolios being able to claw back and go back with that. Let's bring this out to 5 days and see what happened yesterday. Looking through yesterday, it looks like it did significantly drop throughout the day, and it brought itself back up almost to where it was from the start, or from the peak rather. So a little bit of action going on with your Bitcoin, but I mean, we can pull it back out a month and see a significant rise, and then a steady throughout a month, 6 month. It's been on a drop. Just kind of looking at some of the comparisons that we've seen with Bitcoin, it's interesting to come back and see where it was and see where the peak was with that when we were at a very, very good economy. But that's what we see coming off of that. Gas in the Madison area is to 336 in some of the lower price stations. Otherwise, we've got 338s and 339s across the board. Nowhere near as bad as what we saw, but it looks like we might see a little bit of up creep in the gas prices now in the Madison area. So we will continue to watch that and see where this goes. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Summer sale! 6 weeks of IBD Digital for $15 and make your portfolio shine this summer. Dow Futures inflation report looms for market rally. Twitter rallies as Elon Musk sells more Tesla stock. From Ed Carson. I wonder if the Elon stories that I have over on the back end of the show are out of date at this point. Dow Futures rose slightly early Wednesday along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, with the July CPI inflation report on tap before the open. Elon Musk sold $6.9 billion worth of Tesla stock in the past 3 trading sessions, citing his possible Twitter takeover. Tesla and Twitter stock rose. The market rally lost ground, pulling back from resistance levels as Micron Technology triggered a sell-off in chip stocks. On the upside, some natural gas-related stocks showed strength, including Range Resources, EQT Corp, and Equinor, which all broke down trends in handles, flashing potential early entries. However, RRC stock, hey, the already conservative, is publicly traded. No, that's Range Resources. Was the only one moving on OK volume. Golar, LNG, cleared some short-term levels, still near its 50-day line, but earnings are due on Thursday. It's an interesting take as far as what people are doing with energy, especially natural gas. Now, interestingly enough, there is going to be some demand for foreign natural gas, either coming from Israel and Egypt or getting shipped over in containers from here for Europe right now. And that's something to pay attention to, because it is, especially with what I said at the top of the show, we're starting to get on the downswing for weather right now. I mean, most of us are not going to start seeing heating days until October. Let's be realistic about that. But Europe is, I believe, a touch further north than us and subject to more natural gas needs, especially once we get into late August, early September, early October. And they're going to be looking for places like that. This is not official financial advice. But what I'm going to say to you is, right now, if you wanted to get in on the bottom of a natural gas play, right now would be the time to go to your investor and say, hey, I have questions. Can you answer these questions for me? Can you give me official financial advice? Because the guy I get my news from cannot. Apple and Microsoft edged higher on Tuesday. Tesla CEO Elon Musk sold 7.9 million shares at $6.9 billion, according to SEC filings released on Tuesday night. On the evening of August 4th, Tesla held its annual shareholder meeting, with Musk touting the EV giant's growth prospects. Shareholders approved a 3-for-1 stock split, which will take place on August 25th. The next day, Friday, August 5th, Musk sold 3.3 million shares. On Monday, he sold 1.58 million shares, followed by 3.04 million on Tuesday. On Friday, Tesla skidded 6.6% to below its 200-day line. Tesla stock tried to reclaim its 200-day line on Monday, but slashed big intraday gains to just 0.8%. On Tuesday, shares fell 2.4% to $8.50. Musk says he's finished with stock sales for now. He said he was selling shares to avoid emergency stock sales if he has to go through with his $44 billion, $54.20 a share Twitter takeover. Tesla climbed 2% before the open. Twitter stock rose 4% to above 44, continuing to trend higher on the growing chance that the deal will go through. Wedbush analyst Dan Ives raised his Twitter price target to 50 from 30. On the odds that the deal ultimately goes forward, Musk and Twitter will face off before Delaware's Chancery Court in October. Meanwhile, Li Auto sold off hard. Li Auto tumbled 7%, undercutting its recent consolidation and nearing its 200-day. Li Auto vehicles had just 800 insurance registrations from August 1st to 7th, down 74% from last week of July. According to a Chinese blog report, Li Auto earnings are on August 15th. Can you buy like Li and NIO and BYD here? I've asked this question before. I'd be curious to know if China is selling automobiles in our market. I've never seen one, but up until a couple weeks ago, I'd never seen a Rivian in person either. And there is somebody in town here, in Redacted, that has one. Let's see. Among Li's China EV rivals, NIO slumped 5% on Tuesday, knifing through its 50-day line, while giant BYD lost 2.5%. Starting to live below its rising 50-day, both NIO and BYD saw roughly 25% declines from last week of July, a more normal drop after the end-of-month delivery crush. BYD has begun supplying Blade batteries to Tesla at the latter's Berlin area plant, according to CNEVPost.com. Briefly on the key earnings that are on tap, Celsius, Exelixis, headline notable earnings after the close, along with fallen growth plays Coinbase, Roblox, and Trade Desk. Also, PepsiCo is one to watch. Equinor is on the IBD leaderboard. RRC is on Swing Trader and is Tuesday's IBD stock of the day. Microsoft is an IBD long-term leader. Celsius and Equinor are on the IBD 50. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.3% versus bear value. The S&P advanced 0.4%, and the Nasdaq climbed 0.5%. U.S. crude oil prices fell more than 1% to below $90 a barrel. The 10-year yield dipped 1 point to 2.79%. The Labor Department releases July CPI inflation report at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The inflation data will surely have a big impact on Dow futures and Treasury yields. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. And it looks like the CPI is out. Futures rose after the better than expected. Okay, this is how they're going to try to gaslight you. And we're going to skip the other CNBC article because this just made it more relevant here. Your core CPI is 8.5% year over year. And they're telling you this like it's a good thing. Dow futures rip higher by 400 points after lighter than expected inflation report. From Jesse Pound. How much gaslighting do you have to do to think that 8.5% year over year, but it's better than 8.7%, is a good thing right now? How much gaslighting do you have to do? Are you serious right now? I mean, good on the people who stayed in their Dow stocks for their 401k, but still, this is not good news. And this is not inflation coming down by any stretch of the imagination. It's just catching up to the outrageous inflation from last year. We were already having this conversation at this time last year in 2021. Your inflation is still abysmal. But Ed, it's better than it was. Where? What was core CPI for June of 2020 or July of 2021? Now I'm curious. No, I don't want it for 2022. Yes, I understand that you're going to go try to take a victory lap because it was only 8.5%. Hey, look, we're going to come from the same source. This is August 11th, 2021. July consumer prices jumped 5.4%, but core inflation rises less than expected. The CPI was 5.4% in July. Where was it in 2020? Yes, again, they're going to show it for 2022 because they've got to have a victory lap off of that. Okay, so here's BLS statistics. Now, this is 2020, CPI 2020. The Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers increased 0.6% in July on a seasonally adjusted basis. The same increase as in June. BLS reported today over the last 12 months, the All Items Index increased 1% before seasonal adjustment. We had 1% inflation in July of 2020. Fast forward 12 months to July of 2021. In August, CPI was 5.4%, which means, again, and this is what I've been trying to tell you, since we first started talking about inflation, and I predicted from the beginning that they were going to start strutting around like that stupid turkey in the Wausau apartment that they were talking about on Porch Boys last night. They're going to strut around like proud peacocks over 8.5% inflation. that is sitting over 5.4 from the year before. This is not good news. No matter how much CNBC tries to tell you this is good news, and our prices are slowing down. That means, and you actually do have to average this a little bit going with that, but once you come back out and wait, that means that we are well over 11%, probably approaching 12% over the 2 years. From 1% on the year before. Somebody please explain to me why this is good news. Core inflation, which strips out volatile food and energy prices, also saw a smaller than expected increase. A downside surprise plays to hopes that oil food commodities peak, plus slower demand will filter quickly into U.S. inflation data. Alan Ruskin of Deutsche Bank wrote in a Tuesday note. The Federal Reserve will weigh the report along with other key economic data ahead of its September meeting, where it's slated to hike interest rates again. The moves in futures come after the Nasdaq Composite fell for a third straight day on Tuesday. The Nasdaq led the declines, falling 1.2%, after Micron, Novavax, and Upstart warned the future earnings and revenue may come in lower than the previous year. The S&P fell 0.42%, and the Dow Industrial Average shed 0.18%. So, they ripped higher. Hey, we controlled inflation. It's only 8.5% this year, or this month. And they expect you to believe all this. All right, let's get into the main news of the day, and we are going to start with primary results from my state. For Tony Evers, who ran unopposed. Surprise! Tony Evers won the Democratic primary. Tony Evers is going to run against the Republican challenger in November. For the Republican side, Rebecca Clayfish got spanked last night. With 91% of the vote in, Tim Michels, 47.1%, over Clayfish's 42.1%, 322 to 599. Tim Ramathan coming in with 6% of the vote. And Rebecca Clayfish is probably saying the same thing that Hillary Clinton said to Bernie Sanders and to Gary Johnson and to, who else? Jill Stein, hippie grandma. Like, oh, if I had 100% of all those votes, I would have won. No, that's not the case. In another massive showing for a Trump-endorsed candidate, Tim Michels has become the Republican gubernatorial primary winner. And it wasn't even close. This gives me some hope for what's going to happen in November. Because when I see all this orange here, and understanding, of course, that as per usual, Madison and Milwaukee typically are who pick our gubernatorial candidates in the rest of our statewide races. And Madison and Milwaukee went heavily for Clayfish. You know, take the establishment candidate, especially given the fact that I would be willing to bet a lot of people went down the R side off of this, given the fact that a lot of the Democrats, at least in my area, were running unopposed. Which means there was probably at least a little bit of Democrat interference with this. And I can't blame them for that, because I do the same thing on the other side. When primary day for presidential came to Wisconsin, I voted for Bernie. I took a Democrat ballot and voted for Bernie. Just to shake things up a little bit, because, you know, the presidential candidate that I was working for, that I had just endorsed not that long before, was running unopposed, essentially, in Wisconsin. So I was like, you know what? Let's shake things up a little bit. But yes, this is some good news. Rebecca Clayfish is an establishment puppet. She's a Bushite neocon. She deserves no place around politics. So this is definitely good news. I am definitely happy to see some of this here. And again, I've met Tim Michaels briefly. And I have worked adjacent to him for a number of years. Michaels is doing all the construction projects around the state, and he's doing them around the country too. I think, what did Trump say? Did he do, was it the Holland Tunnel that Michaels did? He digs through the earth. He makes holes in the earth. It's a wonderful thing. I had to ask him how he does the kind of things. So we will continue to watch this and see what happens in November. I'm kind of really interested to see if Evers can get ousted, given the massive showing across the state and the fact that it was enough to overcome Madison and Milwaukee. But we'll see. And from the other side, from the establishment, in a move that I'm sure totally means that Liz Cheney is confident in her seat, from the Blaze, Democratic lawmakers urge people to back GOP Rep. Liz Cheney in the Wyoming Republican primary. From Alex Nitzberg, Liz Cheney of Wyoming, an outspoken critic of the former president, has become a pariah in the Republican Party and could lose her August 16th primary to Trump-backed challenger Harriet Hageman. But Cheney is getting political support from a rather unusual source. Democrats. Yes. Democrats. Many of whom in the area have stood shoulder to shoulder with me, because remember, I'm not a Republican by any stretch of the imagination. I vote independent, and my vote typically goes to whoever has the most comprehensive plan on how to leave me the hell alone. But I've stood shoulder to shoulder with people protesting Liz Cheney for the war, because I was strongly against the war. I still am. Because she was evil. She was a warmonger. She's just like her dad, who is evil, who is a warmonger. I wonder if she got some of that legendary Cheney marksmanship. And now, she's exactly what Democrats want and need, because they have no consistency. It's kind of like the title for this show, which, I mean, a lot of you guys probably look at and see a collection and a smattering of letters, but it is, let me bring it back up here to make sure I get it in the right order. ACABUAISIDL. All cops are bastard unless accused is someone I don't like. They will come in and they will support Elizabeth Cheney. They will support Dick Cheney, George W. Bush. People that they all protested loudly, as long as they are saying the right things about the Orange Man. Democrat Reps Dean Phillips of Minnesota and Tom Malinowski of New Jersey. Dean Phillips, who has cut attack ads against Liz Cheney in the past, by the way. Both appeared in videos calling people to support Cheney during the GOP primary. Phillips urged people to please consider temporarily switching parties and voting for Cheney on or by August 16th. And Malinowski said in the video that Wyoming Democrats could place country over party by registering to vote for Cheney in the Republican primary. Meta indicates that Wyomingites defending freedom and democracy paid to run the ads on social media, though big tech company currently indicates that an ad featuring the video of Phillips is active, while an ad featuring the video of Malinowski is inactive. Cheney voted to impeach Trump last year in the wake of the January 6th Capitol selfie fest, and was later booted from her role as House Republican Conference Chair. She is one of the 2 GOP lawmakers serving on the House Select Committee created to investigate the January 6th selfie fest. If the cost of standing up for the Constitution is losing a House seat, then that's the price I'm willing to pay. Well, boy, do I have the sounder for you then. Oops. Oops. that's the thing with me. I mean, people will come back out to try to tell me that I have no principles whatsoever because I can switch parties at a whim when it's convenient for me. And I have expressed myself as a conservative, a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal, and a libertarian throughout my life. I've expressed myself as all these things. But even in my time as a Republican, I knew that people like Cheney and Bush were evil. Cheney told CNN's Jake Tapper last month that irrespective of the outcome of her primary contest, she will continue to fight hard to ensure Donald Trump is never anywhere close to the Oval Office ever again. Yes, after she loses her job, she will be out on the street corner with leaves in her hair and dirt on her face with a cardboard box cut open into a sign that's saying, "Donald Trump is evil. The end is nigh." So long, warmongers. Goodbye. All right, let's talk about the Mar-a-Lago raid. The Real Mac Report with the starting story. Breaking. Judge Bruce Reinhart, who is behind Mar-a-Lago raid, is Epstein-linked Obama donor. I'm shocked. Let's listen.
And this morning, the New York Post is now reporting that the federal magistrate here in Florida, who approved this search warrant after he left working for the U.S. Attorney's Office back in 2008, he then went into private practice and represent several associates of the disgraced financier and accused serial pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. And this morning, the New York Post is now reporting that the federal...
So, I promised that we would talk about magistrate judge because that is apparently what this person is, and I actually don't know what that means. So, let's see if we can't get a title on that. So, it looks like the political article, or not political, it's all political articles here. The political article has a highlighted section of this that tells us what a magistrate judge is, which probably, by the way, tells me that Google is listening to this. Well, I mean, it's streaming on YouTube, which means, of course, Google is listening to this because it's on one of their platforms. So, according to Politico, magistrate judges are not appointed by the president, but instead are appointed by district judges. Their duties can include dealing with bond hearings, handling technical issues in civil cases, and signing off on whether to authorize a search warrant. So this is not a Trump judge, which was one of the things that they were trying to come out and say when they were taking their little victory lap off of this. Oh, Christopher Wray, he's behind this, and he's a Trump appointee, which means even he will turn his back on the person who appointed him. And oh, the judge was a Trump appointee. Well, apparently he wasn't. It sounds to me more like he's a judge intern. Like, oh, hey, Reinhardt, go do this paperwork for me. I don't want to do this. And give me some coffee while you're at it. But also one who can probably be pretty easily shopped for. Let's read from the New York Post. With their weird banner ad. Judge who okayed Mar-a-Lago raid, Obama donor once linked to Jeffrey Epstein. From Miranda Devine, Mark Moore, Sam Chamberlain. The Florida federal magistrate judge who signed off on a search warrant authorizing the FBI raid of the former president Mar-a-Lago donated to Obama's 2008 presidential campaign months after he left the local U.S. Attorney's Office to rep employees of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who had received immunity in the long-running sex trafficking investigation of the financier. Sources tell the Post that Judge Bruce Reinhardt approved the warrant that enabled federal agents coverage on the palatial South Florida estate on Monday in what Trump called an unannounced raid on my home. Unannounced. Okay. Reinhardt was elevated to magistrate judge in March of 18 after 10 years in the private practice. That November, the Miami Herald reported that he had represented several of Epstein's employees, including Reinhardt's own admission to the outlet. Epstein's pilots, his scheduler, Sarah Kellen, and Nadia Markinkova, whom Epstein once reportedly described as his Yugoslavian sex slave. Man, that's a charming fellow, isn't it? Kellen and Markinkova were among Epstein's lieutenants who were granted immunity as part of a controversial 07 deal with federal prosecutors that allowed the pervert to plead guilty to state charges rather than federal crimes. Epstein wound up serving just 13 months in county jail and was granted work release. Man, to be rich. To be fair, if you offered up a 13-year-old girl of foreign ancestry and birth to a wealthy client of yours in exchange for a buttload of money, you would never see the light of day again. But because it's Epstein, and his clients included people like Bill Clinton, he got to get away with it for the first couple times, and then die under mysterious circumstances in a cell. According to the Herald, who cited documents, Reinhardt resigned from South Florida U.S. Attorney's Office effective New Year's Day 08 and went to work for Epstein's cohorts the following day. Epstein, who was found dead in August 2019 of an apparent honk-honk suicide in the Manhattan Correctional Center while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges, had hired a stable of high-power lawyers for his defense in the late 2000s, including former independent counsel Ken Starr. 10 months after starting work on Epstein's co-conspirators, according to Federal Elections Commission records, Reinhardt gave $1,000 directly to Obama campaign and another grand to his fundraising arm, the Obama Victory Fund, though the records show the judge made mostly small dollar donations to his law firm's political action committee in subsequent years. Reinhardt also donated $500 to Jeb in 2016. Interesting. So, both to Obama and the establishment Republican, who was expected to run and win the primary, who was probably on the plane as well at some point. Both of whom hate the person that he signed off with the warrant to go after. Interesting. In a 2011 affidavit, Reinhardt denied he had done anything improper and insisted that since he was not involved in the federal investigation of Epstein, he was not privy to inside information about the case. However, in a 2013 court filing, Reinhardt's former colleagues contradicted him, saying that he had learned confidential, non-public information about the Epstein matter while employed by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Reinhardt noted that to the Herald, in response to a complaint filed against him by a lawyer for Epstein's victims, had been dismissed by the Justice Department. As recently as 2015, Reinhardt was asked to appear on right-wing channel Newsmax to give analysis of the Epstein fallout, but declined publicly note his own role in the case. Very interesting. This sounds to me like somebody else who needs to recuse himself from this case. But really honestly, if everybody who needs to recuse himself from the case did so, on both sides by the way, both people who are MAGA fans and people who are anti-MAGA, I don't know that there would be a lot of people left who could objectively look into this case and be able to go onto a warrant like that. But that was my concern when they first started talking about dropping charges. Who is objective enough to do so? Garland needs to recuse himself from it because Garland was passed over by the Donald. This guy is clearly in support of the Donald's political enemies. I don't think it's appropriate for him to be on here, but that's part of the problem with going after a former president. And it goes in the other direction, to the left, too. I legitimately think that Hillary should have gone at least to county for her classified document server. But who's going to be objective enough to take the case? Who is going to be objective enough to prosecute this without being a political enemy? Nobody. And as I always say, when they go back and they're going to go and railroad the Donald, or anybody that supported the Donald, when they're going to railroad, or if they would go to railroad Clinton, if they can do this to a former First Lady, former Secretary of State, former President, they can do it to you. And that's the problem that I have. But this got just a whole bigger set of weird because of that. Now, as far as the document, I mean, wouldn't it be nice, especially given the fact that this is out there, if we could go in and see the warrant to know what it was that they were looking for, what they expected to find if they went and ripped open safes, went through Melania's clothes, went through and grabbed every document that they can, stuffed it in a basket. It would be nice to see what they're looking for, and we actually do have the warrant. I was able to find the document for the warrant. So let's have a look at that. Oh, surprise! It's sealed! A magistrate matter! And guess what? I was right. It was dated August 5th. Oh, it's sealed. Oh, you mean we can't see what it is that we're looking for? We can't see what it is they're accusing him of having. Well, partially that's probably because they haven't finished filling it out yet. Oh, it's sealed. Oh, you can't see that? I'm so surprised. I'm not surprised. From the Daily Wire, FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago ensnared more than just former president. Report from Ryan Saavedra. Agents with the FBI rooted through personal belongings of former First Lady Melania as they executed a search warrant believed to be connected to classified material that former President Trump was supposed to return to the National Archives this year. New York Post reported Tuesday that agents scoured Melania's wardrobe in the Versailles master bedroom at Mar-a-Lago residence. Lawyers for the DOJ present during the raid reportedly informed Trump's representatives that the search warrant gave them full access to everything on site. Oh, I'm shocked. Reports have claimed that Trump's lawyers were not allowed to observe agents searching the property, although this has not yet been confirmed. There have also been other reports, and I can't independently confirm them, that the agents that were involved in this asked to cut the cameras and everything because obviously there's a camera in the room with the safe, because it's a safe. And there are probably cameras in other things, other areas. And they were roundly told no by the Secret Service. But I mean, you go back and cut the phone line. A lot of stuff is wireless, though, goes up to the cloud. Let's see. Federal agents executed the search warrant because they reportedly believed that Trump had not turned over 15 boxes of material, which included documents marked as top secret, until there was a serious risk of legal action being taken. Federal agents removed more than 10 boxes of material, which is being sorted through at a local FBI field office, which, by the way, is why this is sealed, because they don't know what they're looking for yet. They're just looking for something incriminating, and then they'll go back and fill in the blanks on the warrant, like, oh no, this illegal thing that we found on a tax return, we were totally looking for tax returns. That's what the search warrant was looking for. Totally. But it'll still be dated August 5th, by the way. Agents were reportedly at the property the entire day and were dressed in plain clothes, leading staff to believe that they were Secret Service, which is why news of the executed search warrant did not leak. Trump's Secret Service agents were notified about the raid only moments before it occurred. Trump had lawyers present during the raid while he was at his residence in New York City. Federal prosecutors opened a grand jury investigation back in May into Trump over whether classified material that ended up at his home in Mar-a-Lago was mishandled. The main purposes of these types of investigations is usually for federal authorities to determine if any classified material was compromised so that intelligence officials can take steps to protect sensitive sources and methods. Prosecutors are seeking to learn every aspect of how the documents were handled from the time the documents left the White House until they were returned to the National Archives. For prosecutors to be able to prove that a crime was committed, they would need evidence showing that the parties involved in removing the documents from the White House knew the documents were classified and knew that removing them would violate the law. And yes, that does provide a glaring problem for the FBI, especially with Comey being involved with that, because they gave Hillary the intent excuse. Oh, she didn't mean to take those documents out of there, so there's no crime here. She didn't mean to mishandle them. She didn't know what she was doing was wrong, so there's no intent here. And yes, as McLeod has pointed out, or I'm sorry, Ron Helton pointed out, all he has to do is declare that they're declassified, which I've got a Breitbart article, and Breitbart is not green check verified. But I do have a Breitbart article talking about that, saying that they were already declassified. I cannot independently confirm that. But I do want to bring it up for argument's sake. But this is interesting. And I wonder which FBI agent's wife just got a brand new one-of-a-kind dress. Or maybe worn once one-of-a-kind dress. I don't know. Let's go start looking at the agents that were involved and see whose wife is 5'10" and approximately a size 6. Let's listen to Token Diversity Hire, telling us why we shouldn't be concerned about any of this. Diversity Hire. I want to remind everyone of what Biden said when he nominated Merrick Garland. We need to restore the honor, integrity, and independence of the Department of Justice that's been so badly damaged.
I can say that President Biden has been unequivocal since the campaign. He believes in the rule of law, in the independence of the Justice Department investigations, that those investigations should be free from political influence, and he has held that commitment as president. I want to also remind you all of what he said on January 7th of 2021 when he then nominated Merrick Garland to be the Attorney General, and I quote, "We need to restore the honor, the integrity, of the independence of the Department of Justice in this nation that has been so badly damaged." And so many former leaders of that department in both parties have so testified and stated that. I want to be clear to those who lead this department who you will serve. You won't work for me. You are not the president or the vice president's lawyer. Your loyalty is not to me. It's to the law, the Constitution, the people of this nation to guarantee justice and
yet, he chose somebody who had a political axe to grind against the person who passed him over for the Supreme Court. There is so much conflict of interest with this. And by the way, I believe I was the one that said that first. I know that Tim and Styx and those are starting to talk about that. I was probably when they first started talking about January 6th and referring charges, and I'm going to be looking so close at the January 6th hearings. I started to say right then, I said, I think this is a conflict of interest. And now the rest of independent media has caught up. And I have no idea if MSM has or not, but I doubt it. I doubt it. From the New York Post. And their weird banner at the top. Trump raid not about classified documents, it's about January 6th. Well, they're partially right because, and I have not seen this one either, but allegedly, the MSM was starting to come and be wise to the fact that there were not going to be any charges filed from the January 6th Selfie Fest committee. Because the vast majority of us already know that these testimonies are going to fall apart under cross. And by the way, people like Hutchinson, you know, are going to get subpoenaed. If we get into that situation. From Andy McCarthy. The court-authorized search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate is another unmistakable signal that the Justice Department is trying to build a criminal case against him, arising out of the Selfie Fest. Ostensibly, the search relates to a long-simmering dispute between the former president and the government over Trump's potentially illegal retention and mishandling of classified information, but don't be deceived. National Archives officials alerted the Justice Department months ago regarding missing records and possible classified information violations that owes to the chaotic atmosphere in which the Trump family decamped to Florida from the White House following the Capitol Selfie Fest, with impeachment proceedings and even talk of removing Trump from office under the 25th underway. Reportedly, about 15 boxes of records were removed from the White House and shipped to Mar-a-Lago. The National Archives subsequently explained that much of the material should have been kept in the government's possession, pursuant to the Presidential Records Act. After extensive negotiations, Trump agreed to return some of the materials in January 2022. Upon receipt, the National Archives officials advised the Justice Department that the returned materials included classified information. If true, that raises several issues. If Trump had not declassified these materials when he was president, then his continuing possession of them as a non-secure location is probably illegal. Yes, that's what we go on for our Justice Department. Probably illegal. I saw my name over here. But it wasn't me, it's Hoover. While presidents have the unilateral authority to declassify intelligence, they only maintain that authority while in office. It may not be exercised in the post-presidency. The returned documents were thus potentially evidence of crimes. In addition, since it's believed Trump did not return everything that was shipped out to the White House in those hectic days of January 2021, there was a significant reason to suspect he continued to retain classified information at Mar-a-Lago. One of the potential law violations under Section 2071 of the Federal Penal Code includes its penalty provisions that upon conviction, the defendant shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the U.S. The ongoing proceedings implicating Trump, in particular the Justice Department's investigations and the House January 6 Selfie Fest committee, seem geared towards undermining his capacity to seek the presidency again. Yes, we've known that from the beginning. Obviously, then, there's speculation the DOJ may be mobilizing now in order to trigger the Section 2071 disqualification. Either that, or this is what I'm thinking off of this. They aren't able to go back and subpoena things because of top secret clearance that the president has, so the January 6th committee is using the FBI to accidentally release documents to the Selfie Fest committee. Oh, it's just going to be an accident that they're going to wind up in Liz Cheney's office. And they're probably going to be things like tax returns. And they're probably going to be things like information on what is classified over what happened on January 6th. Still no word on whether they found anything or not, but this is an insane violation. But we'll see what happens with that. Now, for people that are coming out here trying to say that Joe Biden had no information about this, no intent on this, which realistically I don't necessarily, I would believe it if I found out that he had no understanding of this, because, I mean, the guy can't put on a coat, a sport coat. But let's remember what he said on June 9th.
I often get asked, look, the Republicans don't play it square. Why do you play it square?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If we do the same thing they do, our democracy will literally be in jeopardy.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
not a joke. And
I understand that argument, but also it's like you're playing Monopoly with somebody who, won't pass go and won't follow any of the rules. And how do you ever make any progress if they're not following the rules?
we've got to send them to jail, And there's that little box in there.
Directly to jail?
Go directly to jail.
Now, I can't say whether or not he's actually... This was foreshadowing to what we're seeing off of this, but he seems pretty loose with the idea of sending a political opponent to jail, doesn't he? What else do we have? I mean, this is this same guy right here. Daily Wire tweets out, Biden shakes hands with Schumer, then forgets that he just shook hands with Schumer seconds later. Let's watch.
Now our great speaker, our partner, who all of these bills we've met.
Yeah, he looks so confused.
Now our great speaker, our partner, who all of...
Watch. Shakes his hand. Shakes his hand. Hey, man. Why did he pass over me, man? Why won't he shake my hand, man? Come on, man. What else do we have? From the Blaze, Joe Biden on the Inflation Reduction Act. Let's listen.
Basis, like $1.2 billion infrastructure project, like what we're doing today, what we passed yesterday, helping take care of everything from healthcare to God knows what else. What we're going to do is we're going to see, for example, if they got to put a new water line in the community, there's no reason why they can't at the same time be digging a line that puts in a whole new modern line for internet connections. Why? Why can't we do that? So this is going to be different. Basis, like $1.2 billion infrastructure project, like what we're doing today, what we passed yesterday, helping take care of everything from healthcare to God knows what else.
Healthcare to God knows what. Well, I hope you know, Mr. President, because you're about to sign the damned bill. You're about to put your name to this forever. I would hope that you know what else. I mean, it's not going to be too much longer before you go and meet God either, but... Oh, this will be some good news. From the Daily Wire, McConnell, Senate Republican leaders respond to FBI raid on Trump home. Mitch McConnell responded Tuesday afternoon to the FBI's raid this week on the Florida home of former President Trump by demanding that federal officials provide the American public with an immediate explanation for their actions. They don't have to. I can do it for them. It's not hard. Bring me the man and I will fund you the crime. The FBI agents executed a search warrant. We know that. Let's go on to the statement. The country deserves a thorough and immediate explanation of what led to the events of Monday, McConnell said in a statement. Attorney General Garland and the Department of Justice should have already provided answers to the American people and must do so immediately. The strongest statement by far came from Rick Scott of Florida, who echoed Kevin McCarthy's strong statement on Monday. If AG Garland and the FBI director do not make public statements today explaining to the American people exactly what they did at Mar-a-Lago and why, they will have lost what little public trust that they may have had and no longer deserve to remain in office. Oh, well, there's a lot of trust for those people among Democrats right now. Again, that goes back to the title of this particular stream. ACABUAISIDL. All cops are bastards unless the accused is someone that I don't like. All related records must be made available to Congress now, and every Republican must demand accountability, since President Biden claims that he didn't know he needs to come out today and demand all the facts be presented to the American people. When Republicans retake the majority in the Senate, there will be a thorough and aggressive investigation, Scott added. Everything needs to be on the table for A.G. Garland, including impeachment. If he doesn't come out today and explain what happened, today the nation is watching and we demand answers. I don't know that I would have put that way. Because that's a big campaign ad to the people, the Hollywood writers who are going to take this and twist this to make sure that you don't get the senatorial majority. In this world, Rick Scott, with such party loyalty, will be out there ready to impeach the one thing standing between you and democracy. A.G. Garland. Rick Scott doesn't want democracy for you. He wants to remove everything in the way and put his own loyalists in there. Remember, in November, you have to vote for a Democrat, even if they will take all of your money and be authoritarian to you. Republicans are standing in the way of democracy, and A.G. Garland is a saint. No candidate paid into this, the release of this, but we still got a bunch of money from Act Blue. Talking about the Breitbart article we talked about a bit before, from Breitbart, documents at Mar-a-Lago are classified were already declassified, Kash Patel says. Breitbart is not green check verified, so I cannot independently verify that this is the case, but it's interesting to think about. Kash Patel, a former top Trump admin official, told Breitbart on Wednesday that a report claiming classified material were found at Mar-a-Lago is misleading and that documents were actually already declassified by then-President Trump, but the classification markings had not been updated. Trump declassified whole sets of materials in anticipation of leaving the government that he thought the American people should have the right to read themselves, Patel told Breitbart News in a phone interview. Wow. Realistically, he had 2 years to release that to the public, so some of this is on him. I was there with President Trump when he said, "We're declassifying this information." The story is just another disinformation campaign designed to break the public trust in a president that lived on transparency. It's yet another way to attack Trump and say that he took classified information when he did not, he added. There were some other guesses of what could be in the safe, and especially given the fact that they were very clear over the fact that they were going to go back and raid and get whatever they wanted out of it. One of the questions there is, was the safe empty? Did they break open the safe because to go after nothing at all? Which is a possibility. Or did they break open the safe and find 12 copies of the hard drive from Hunter's laptop? I kind of like the one, I think John was the one that brought it up last night on Porch Boys, where there's also the theory that inside the safe was just one document that read, "Whatever FBI reads this is super secret double gay." And you can just picture the FBI agent walking back and handing this out to the commander and says, "I read it." What else do we have? I have not watched this video. Trump apparently posted this on Truth Social at midnight local time on August 9th, according to the timestamp. Let's listen.
We are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. We are a nation that has the highest inflation in over 40 years, where the stock market just finished the worst first half of a year in more than 5 decades. We are a nation that has the highest energy cost in its history, and we are no longer energy independent or energy dominant, which we were just 2 short years ago. We are a nation that is begging Venezuela and Saudi Arabia for oil. We are a nation that surrendered in Afghanistan, leaving behind dead soldiers, American citizens, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment in the world. We are a nation that allowed Russia to devastate a country, Ukraine, killing hundreds of thousands of people, and it will only get worse. We're a nation that has weaponized its law enforcement against the opposing political party like never before. We've never seen anything like this. We're a nation that no longer has a free and fair press. Fake news is about all you get. We are a nation where free speech is no longer allowed, where crime is rampant like never before, where the economy has been collapsing, where more people died of COVID in 2021 than in 2020. We are a nation that is allowing Iran to build a massive nuclear weapon and China to use the trillions and trillions of dollars it's taken from the United States to build a military to rival our own. We are a nation that over the past 2 years is no longer respected or listened to all around the world. And we are a nation that is hostile to liberty and freedom and faith. We are a nation whose economy is floundering, whose stores are not stocked, whose deliveries are not coming, and whose educational system is ranked at the bottom of every list. We are a nation that in many ways has become a joke. But soon we will have greatness again. It was hard-working patriots like you who built this country, and it is hard-working patriots like you who are going to save our country. There is no mountain we cannot climb. There is no summit we cannot reach. There is no challenge we cannot beat. There is no victory we cannot have. We will not bend. We will not break. We will not yield. Ever, ever, ever. We will never give in. We will never give up. And we will never, ever back down. We will never let you down as long as we are confident and united. The tyrants we are fighting do not stand even a little chance. Because we are Americans, and Americans kneel to God and God alone. And it is time to start talking about greatness for our country again.
I mean, it's a good speech, and it's a lot of the things that I'd like to see, but realistically, I want to hear more about this firing of 50,000 federal agents, and, you know, just snip out that part about replacing them. Nope, don't want any more of that. And a detailed plan about how you intend to leave me the hell alone. You know, one of the things I like about living in Rock County, just on a little side note on that, is I know, like, when I lived in Kenosha, when I was driving in Milwaukee a lot, and in Racine County when I got my last ticket, which, thank the lawyer for taking care of that for me. they'd pop you for a little bit over on speed, a registration, or if they noticed that you had a suspended license and they saw that on your license plate, they'd get you for the littlest things over here. In Rock County, I can't tell. I bet you I can count on both hands the number of times I've seen somebody pulled over in this county. Which I kind of like. They don't seem to really care about small potato stuff. I think I got one talking to when my registration was expired. Which the officer was pumping gas and I was stopped in the local Quick Trip. And he came up to the window and chewed me out for it for a little while. But that was it. That's the only time I've really seen the Rock County Sheriff's Department go after something that wasn't hurting people or taking their stuff. I don't see a lot of that around here, which is kind of nice. Because it was a constant kenosha. And again, I've talked about running for sheriff. I didn't make the deadline to get on the primary ballot this time, but hey, if you're in Rock County and you want to go back and do a write-in campaign, J. Edgar for sheriff, and run for sheriff on a platform of don't hurt people and don't take your stuff, and I really don't want to enforce any laws other than that. It needs a bit of refining, but I mean, to go back and take this back to what Trump did with this. I mean, this is a person who at least pays lip service to the fact that he wants to pull the restrictions off and make it easier for you to go back and make a living. To make it harder for foreign nations to come back out and laugh about the fact that they're taking our industry away from us. And he wants to be strong on the world stage. I don't know how it will go. I don't know if he's even going to be able to do so, but he has done a good job on being kingmaker in this past election cycle. And really, honestly, even if he is honk disqualified for honk reasons that they were found by the raid, he is probably going to live the rest of his days because they're not going to put him in federal supermax for the rest of his days over a few documents. They're going to try, but they're not going to. It's not going to happen. But even if he's knocked out of the running at that point, the Donald, for all of his faults, will spend the rest of his days picking and choosing who the Republican nominees are and doing a very good job of it. He does seem to be very talented at picking who is electable to the people. I mean, we just saw this with Michaels. So, that is what that video was. That's, again, I didn't pre-watch that. That was the first time. Daily Wire saying the part that we all knew already. Nearly 8 in 10 Americans believes the U.S. has a two-tier justice system by survey from John Rigolizzo. I mean, does any... I want to talk to the 2 in 10 people that don't believe that. Because I want to ask them where they've been for the past 20 years. Nearly 8 in 10 Americans believe there's a two-tier justice system in the U.S., according to a new poll. The National Issue survey of more than 1,000 likely 2022 general election voters conducted between July 24th and 28th by the Trafalgar Group in partnership with Convention of States Action found that 79.3% of Americans believe the U.S. has a two-tier justice system with one set of laws for political insiders and another for average Americans. Notably, large majorities of both parties agreed with the idea. The survey asked respondents, what is your opinion of the current state of the American justice system? Nearly 8 in 10 Americans, 79.3%, responded, there are 2 tiers of justice in the American justice system, one set of laws for politicians in D.C., insiders, versus one set of laws for everyday Americans. With just 11.6% of respondents answering that there's only one system of justice with laws applied to all Americans, another 9.1% of Americans were unsure. Fully two-thirds of Democrats said they believe the U.S. has a two-tier system, with just 17.5% of respondents said they thought there was just one justice system. 9% were unsure. 9 in 10 Republicans, 87.8%, says the U.S. has a two-tier system. 6.9% said there was one justice system applied equally. 5.3% were not sure. Among those with no party affiliation, more than three-quarters said there was a two-tier system. 13.8% said there was just one system, and 9% were unsure. Yeah, we've known that for quite a while. This is not news. From the Blaze. New details leak about FBI's shock raid on Mar-a-Lago, and GOP leader fires back at AG Garland. Preserve your documents and clear your calendar. Well, the details: FBI began the raid at 9 a.m. and searched the property until 6:30 p.m. Plainclothes, we knew that. 3 of the lawyers arrived at Mar-a-Lago. The purpose of the raid was to retrieve classified documents from the Times. Mr. Trump delayed returning 15 boxes of material requested by the National Archives for many months, only doing so when there became a threat of action to retrieve them. This case was referred to the Justice Department by the Archives earlier this year. McCarthy, I've had enough. The Department of Justice has reached an intolerable state of weaponized politicization. When Republicans take back the House, we will conduct immediate oversight of this department, follow the facts, and leave no stone unturned. AG Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar, he added. And they weren't done with Mar-a-Lago either, by the way, from the Daily Wire. FBI confiscates cell phone of Republican congressman, from Ryan Saavedra. Federal agents confiscated the personal cell phone of Scott Perry while he was traveling on Tuesday with his family, the lawmaker says. This morning, while traveling with my family, 3 FBI agents visited me and seized my cell phone, Perry said in a statement. They made no attempt to contact my lawyer, who would have made arrangements for them to have my phone if that was their wish. I'm outraged, though not surprised, that the FBI, under the direction of Garland's DOJ, would seize my phone of a sitting member of Congress. My phone contains info about my legislative and political activities and personal private discussions with my wife, family, constituents, and friends. None of this is the government's business, he added. Perry invoked the former President Trump, who was raided by the FBI on Monday, in his statement. As with President Trump last night, the DOJ chose this unnecessary and aggressive action instead of simply contacting my attorneys, Perry said. These kinds of banana republic tactics should concern every citizen, especially considering the decision before Congress this week to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to further persecute law-abiding citizens. It's unclear what the seizing of Perry's cell phone was related to, but Fox News did note that Perry had been a target of the Democrats' January 6 House Select Committee because he is a loyal Trump ally who was in frequent contact with the Trump White House. Now, this article does not specify whether or not there was a warrant for Rick Perry's cell phone, but a lot of the leftoids that are talking about this and trying to push back on this are saying there is a warrant. I cannot confirm that at this time, if there was a warrant for this phone. But yeah, they're not going to stop at the president. They're going to do everything they can to make sure their political enemies are silenced. So do keep that in mind. Alright, and that's what we see off of that. We've got to move on into some other things here on another slate of news that we're not going to finish up with. But we will see what we can get through. From WSB TV, 2 out of Atlanta. Second person dies after shooting a baseball game that injured 4 others, including a 6-year-old. From WSBTV.com news staff. Atlanta police are investigating a shooting that left 2 people dead and 4 others, including a child, wounded at an Atlanta park. The shooting occurred at the Dunbar Rec Center outside Rosa L. Birney Park on Windsor Street around 7 p.m. Channel 2 Action News first reported on the shooting as breaking news on WSB Tonight. APD Deputy Chief Charles Hampton Jr. says there was a baseball or softball game occurring when an argument broke out, ending with shots fired. When they arrived, officers found multiple people shot. A man in his 30s was transported to Grady Medical Memorial, where he died from his injuries. Another woman died on Monday, according to police. A 6-year-old was taken to Children's of Atlanta, Eggleston Hospital, where she remains in critical condition. Channel 2's Michael Seaton was at Grady Memorial, where friends identified the man who was killed as 31-year-old Rashad Rogers. Rogers' friend Kimberly Dukes was not at the park at the time of the shooting, but she said she was just an innocent bystander, or she said he rather was just an innocent bystander. I know he's a father and his kids are going to miss him, so we want to make sure that this doesn't happen to any other father or child, Duke said. And surprisingly enough, I'm not surprised that this made some news in the midst of an election year where they're trying to go back hard after guns. But this hasn't made as big a news as I would have thought, which tells me that they probably know who did the shooting, and it doesn't fit a narrative. Especially considering it probably wasn't done if it's at a softball game with a scary black composite rifle. But we'll continue to watch this. An update on a news story that we talked about earlier on in the week. Suspect arrested in murders of Albuquerque Muslim men. From Chris McKee. Albuquerque police have arrested a suspect in the investigation tied to the murder of 4 Muslim men. Police say 51-year-old Mohammed Syed was taken into custody last night near Santa Rosa, roughly 118 miles east of Albuquerque. According to APD, Syed is currently being charged 2 of 4 homicides under the investigation. Those include the July 26th shooting of Aftab Hussein and the August 1st shooting of Mohammed Afzal Hussein. AAPD says detectives connected Syed to the 2 cases through bullet casings recovered at the respective crime scene and several guns recovered in the case. And as we know, hold on, this story is about to get memory hold faster than you can say newspeak. Because this is not some white supremacist in Albuquerque who went out shooting muzzies because we have to go back and shoot muzzies. This is an Afghani immigrant who is also Muslim, who decided to go against I believe he was a Sunni Muslim who is going back and targeting Shiites in Albuquerque. Hours before the Albuquerque killing, the suspect was publicly identified. CNN reporters were inside his home. Here's what happened. Well, CNN got the drop on things and decided they wanted to be out there when they went and raided the home, thinking they were about to go catch a white supremacist. Is what happened. From Ashley Kilo, Ed Lavandera, and Christina Maxoris. Authorities said Tuesday they arrested 51-year-old Mohammed Syed as a suspect in killings of 2 Muslim men in Albuquerque. Hours before the announcement, CNN was inside Syed's home and spoke to his daughter, who offered insight on her father and what happened when they saw each other last, which she said was before his arrest and before authorities executed a search warrant on the family's home. The daughter, one of Syed's 6 children, spoke to CNN Tuesday when the family was still cleaning up after investigators had pored over the contents of the house the night before. Living room rugs were tossed around and the contents of drawers had been strewn out. A flag of Afghanistan, from where Syed and his family had moved several years ago, still hung prominently in the living room. CNN has chosen not to name the daughter out of concern for her safety. Well, I hate to say this, but I don't know that there are going to be a lot of people with the surname Syed in Albuquerque. So this one's going down the memory hole, but I wanted to make sure you guys at least got the update off of it. From Forbes. Now, this is something that I want to point out, and there's going to be some murmurings that this is not what was being presented. So this is probably something we're going to talk about again later on in the week. But from Forbes on the initial, Facebook gave Nebraska cops a teen's DM so they could prosecute her for having an abortion. From Emily Baker White and Sarah Emerson. Before I read this, I want to let you know that if you are planning on committing something that's a criminal act in your state, and I'm going objectively with this because I still have questions about, the privacy side of things. Obviously, I don't want little babies to be murdered. But we're going to leave that argument aside for just a second and focus on just the general criminal aspect of it. If you are planning on instigating a crime, burning a Wendy's, a protest, a bank robbery, a series of small muggings across a certain area, or something as new as having an abortion in a state that no longer allows it, and you are using a big tech company's DM service, you are too stupid to conspire to commit a crime. And you should probably just go turn yourself in and of itself. Zuckerberg, Agarwal, none of these people have any principles and any standards whatsoever, and they will turn over everything as soon as the government asks for it, without a second thought. Your private messages are not private, even on Discord. I know that I mentioned to Mazo Minx the other night that because she wants to start doing some uploads to a YouTube channel for replays for her video game streams and has questions about the DMCA side of things. So I'm going to talk to her by DM, but again, knowing full well that if, and I doubt this would ever happen, but we'll use this. I'll pick on Mazo Minx for just a second. As a for instance, let's say that just afterwards, something breaks inside of Mazo Minx's mind, and she goes on a killing spree. Again, not something that would ever happen in a lifetime, but I'm using this as a devil's advocate, as an example. And now it's found out that I was speaking to her in DMs, that I will probably be looked at as a person of interest, as an accomplice of some sort, until they go through everything and clear it. And the CEO of Discord is going to, oh yes, no, I have all this information right here for you. Give me that warrant. Yes, Daddy Government, here, have all the information you could want, right here. There are ways to conspire to do this, but big tech DMs are not it, yo. Big tech DMs are not it right now, yo. But this from Emily Baker White and Sarah Emerson. A Nebraska teenager is facing criminal charges alleging she aborted a fetus in violation of state law. After authorities obtained her Facebook messages using a search warrant, 17-year-old Celeste Burgess, who is being tried as an adult along with her mother Jessica Burgess, is awaiting trial in Madison County District Court on charges that they broke Nebraska law, banning abortions after 20 weeks. This marks one of the first instances of a person's Facebook activity being used to incriminate her in a state where abortion access is restricted, a scenario that has remained largely hypothetical in the weeks following the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Nebraska currently outlaws abortions beyond 20 weeks on Monday. Republicans in the state failed to secure enough votes to decrease that window to 12 weeks. Celeste and her mother were charged in July with allegedly removing, concealing, or abandoning a dead human body and concealing the death of another person after the Norfolk Police Department received a tip claiming Celeste had miscarried in April at 23 weeks and secretly buried the fetus with her mother's help. The case was first reported by the Lincoln Journal-Star. While Celeste told police she suffered a miscarriage. They continued to investigate, serving Facebook with a search warrant to access Celeste and Jessica's Facebook accounts. They subsequently found messages between the mother and daughter allegedly detailing how Celeste had undergone a self-managed abortion with Jessica's help. There are 4 states that ban abortions at 20 weeks and more than a dozen that broadly ban it at the start of fetal viability. There appears to be more to the story, and it's possible that Celeste has passed away. I need to confirm more of the story. But again, the biggest problem with this is if you're going to go and commit a crime using direct messages from Zuckerberg, who will flip for the government in a second, you might as well just walk yourself down to the police station and turn yourself in. If you're doing it by a Facebook DM, you're carrying a bright neon sign that says, "I'm committing a crime! Arrest me!" Morons. More crime and punishment stuff. Former Texas teacher gets 60 days in jail for sexual relations with underage student. Get your kids out of these schools. From Bradford Pets. A former Texas teacher was sentenced this week to 60 days and 10 years of deferred adjudication probation for sexually abusing an underage student and enraging the local community who felt that the judge was too lenient. Marka Bodine, a former Tomball ISD teacher, pleaded guilty to aggravated sexual assault of a child under 40. She must register as a sex offender following her jail sentence. Bodine began a sexual relationship with the boy when he was 13, authorities said. During their relationship, Bodine sent the boy explicit photographs and videos, the Harris County Sheriff's Office said. Bodine was arrested on April of 2021 after the student called both the school and the Tomball Police Department. Fox 26 reported at the time. So, my question is, well, my first question is, how long has this been going on? And my next question is did Bodine, by any chance, grow up a little bit, meet some Giga Chad, decided that she wanted to date him instead, and tell unnamed student that it's over, and unnamed student ran straight to the police? I'm guessing that's what happened with that. Don't worry, it's still wrong for her to do that, but I'm guessing that's how that went down. Some community activists criticized Bodine's sentence as too lenient, Fox 26 reported. One activist, Quanell X, accused the Harris County Judge Greg Glass of not being qualified to protect the children of Houston and Harris County. Yeah, I'd go down that road. I would think that that's probably fair. I mean, what's the first question? And I know that all the stoner comedies of the 90s and early 2000s always had a joke about a 15-year-old having sex with an adult, because, I mean, at the time it was so funny. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Oh, 15-year-old and 20-year-old. Oh, ha, 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 ha. It's not funny, by the way. But the joke that always went around was, hey, watch yourself, check her ID, because 15 will get you 20. Apparently, according to the judge in Houston, 15 will no longer get you 20. 15 will get you 60, but it's not years, like 20 used to be. So, that's what they say for that. Get your kids out of these schools. More abortion news. Is Europe next? Concerns over abortion rights rise after the Supreme Court overturns Roe. Well, I want to remind you that most European countries that they look to as a model are more stringent about abortion already than a lot of U.S. states. From Patrick Smith, abortion rights opponents have long been stuck on the fringes of politics in much of Western Europe. The Supreme Court's recent decision to overturn Roe has many in the movement hoping that's about to change. That abortion was thrust into the headlines and onto the agenda has been a big step forward, said Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, co-director of March for Life UK, an annual event in September in London. I feel that a long time has been shut down in the UK. In any debate or discussion, it's been very loaded, she said. The fact it's becoming a talking point is a massive step forward. Whatever anyone's views on abortion, it's not helpful if we can't talk about it. Vaughan-Spruce said that she had noticed more people were contacting March for Life UK since the end of Roe, including supporters, donors, and women. Unsure about going forward with their pregnancies, March for Life UK said 5,000 people attended the London event in 2019. Overall, opponents of abortion rights are a small minority. The polling company YouGov found in June that 85% of British adults said, "Oi, mate," to the question on whether women should have the right to an abortion, with just 5% saying no. Why do you think we're moving a step towards making abortion unthinkable and illegal? She said. Since Roe vs. Wade, we've a lot of more people getting in touch saying, "What can I do?" The goals of groups like Vaughan-Spruce's are modest compared to those of American counterparts, anti-abortion rights groups, realizing that banning abortion in the UK would be, at least in the short term, nearly impossible. And that's a part of the problem, is that over in Europe, they are a lot more nihilistic than we are here, first and foremost. But they are also a part of the difference between the argument in the US and the argument in Europe is that Europeans are still under the subject and government mentality, like you are a subject, you're not a citizen. In the United States, we are at least led to believe, even if it's not true, that we are sovereign citizens of this country and all human beings are created equal. And the argument here starts to become, where does humanity begin? People like me say it's at conception. People like Ralph Northam say it's 2 weeks after birth. And a vast majority of Americans say it's at fetal viability. But there is an argument on our side of the country what point a human being becomes a viable sovereign citizen. Whereas there's still, even to this day, a leftover mentality in places like England, which still has a queen, even though it's a vestigial role, but in also all these other countries that had a monarchy and where people were property of the government, on whether or not another human being can be property. And I think that's one of the things that's leading to the fact that it does stay legal in many of these countries, even if it is more stringent than some of our states here. So that's what they're panicking about. See, we got a couple minutes left. Let's see what we can do before thing I like and thing that I, well, no, it's not thing I like, thing I hate. Thing I like, thing I hate is on Thursday. Something that restores my faith in humanity is what we do on Wednesday. Let's talk Eric Adams, because Eric Adams has this to say about the fact that he's had 57 illegal migrants show up in New York City thus far.
I already called all of my friends in Texas and told them how to cast their vote. And I am deeply contemplating taking a busload of New Yorkers to go to Texas and do some good old-fashioned door knocking because we have to, for the good of America, we have to get him out of office. I already called all of my friends in Texas and told them how to cast their vote.
So it doesn't look like he said that in that video, but let's continue on here. From Fox News, New York Mayor Eric Adams suggests busing New Yorkers to Texas to campaign against Abbott for the good of America. Well, here's the thing. If you want to take some of these people out of your echo chamber of New York and let them see how the rest of the country lives, send them here. We'll go to the rodeo one day. Send them down to Texas. Send them out to the rest of the country. But don't be surprised when they see how the rest of us live and they come back and they look at your wonderful crumbling city, Eric Adams, and say, crap, why do I live like this? This sucks. Eric, you suck. We're not going to vote for your party anymore. From Andrew Mark Miller. Mayor Adams suggested that he would bus New Yorkers down to Texas to campaign against Greg Abbott for the good of America in response to Abbott's move to bus illegal immigrants from Texas to the Big Apple. I called my friends in Texas and told them how to cast their votes, Adams said during a news conference on Tuesday. I'm deeply contemplating taking a busload of New Yorkers to go to Texas and do some good old-fashioned door knocking because we have to, for the good of America. We have to get him out of office. Yes, and replace him with Beto O'Rourke. How do you think that's going to go in Texas? A second busload of immigrants arrived in city on Sunday, as ordered by Abbott, who has been shipping illegal border crossers into liberal cities to bring attention to the issue of illegal immigration in his own state. As ordered is such a loaded way to put that, because if you understand what's going on with Eric Adams and New York City, you will already know the fact that the people that are getting bussed out there are doing so on a purely voluntary basis. Agents from the Abbott office are coming in and saying, hey, the people in New York fought desperately to get you here. They've got more resources up there. Same with the DC. Those people in DC fought desperately to get you here. I will pay for your bus ticket to go up and show them the diversity that you can bring to this country. If you want to go, I can't force you, but if you want to go, sign on this dotted line here. Here's your ticket. Godspeed, my friend. But be careful what you wish for, Mr. Adams, because they might not come back seeing the world the way that you want them to see it. From the Daily Wire, Abbott shreds New York City Mayor Adams for complaining about a few dozen illegals in his sanctuary city. From Ryan Saavedra. Greg Abbott slammed New York City Democrat Mayor Eric Adams for complaining about the small number of illegal aliens that have been bused to the city, while Texas has been forced to bear the brunt of the border crisis that's erupted under President Biden. Adams, who greeted the group of roughly 40 illegal aliens who arrived from Texas on Sunday, has requested help from the federal government in dealing with the illegal aliens that have been dropped off in the city. And it's horrific to think about what Abbott is doing, Adams said during a press conference. New York City, that has always represented democratic values, showing our values. That's what we're doing today. It's unimaginable what the governor of Texas has done, he claimed. When you think about this country, a country that's always been open to those who are fleeing persecution and other intolerable conditions, we've always welcomed that. Well, then, Eric, welcome it. And this governor's not doing that in Texas, but we're going to set the right message and the right tone of being here for these families, Adams added. Abbott responded to Adams' remarks in a fire statement on Monday afternoon, mocking the first-term mayor as being hypocritically upset. What's horrific is the thousands of illegal immigrants overrunning and overwhelming our border communities with populations smaller than New York City borough. And Mayor Adams is hypocritically upset about welcoming a few dozen into a sanctuary city. Abbott said, these migrants willingly chose to go to New York City, having signed a voluntary consent waiver, available in multiple languages, upon boarding that they agreed on the destination. If the mayor wants a solution to the crisis, he should call on President Biden to take immediate action to secure the border, something the president continues failing to do, Abbott continued. The Biden admin is allowing historic levels of illegal immigrants, weapons, and deadly drugs like fentanyl to surge into our state, and dumping migrants on our border towns with little or no help provided. Fight! 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 What else do we have? I know we gotta wrap it up. But on the same vein, let's grab this one here. I think we'll call it after that. From CBS, Biden admin suspends remain in Mexico following court order. From Camilo Montoya Galvez. Border officials on Monday suspended the Trump-era rules that required certain immigrants to wait for their asylum hearings in Mexico. The suspension followed a federal court order that put an end to a lengthy legal back and forth over President Biden's efforts to end the policy. In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security said it had stopped placing migrants in the migrant protection protocols, a policy colloquially known as Remain in Mexico. It also said it would process migrants already enrolled in the program and allow them to continue their asylum cases inside the U.S. DHS is committed to ending the court-ordered implementation of MPP in a quick and orderly manner, the department added, urging asylum seekers to rely on official information from the government, not human smugglers. Bruh, I see over in the chat Harvey McLeod. Beto tries to take the guns. Bruh, hell yes, I'm gonna take your AR-15, bruh. And your AK-47. And your .32 pistol, bruh. Because nobody needs that. I'm the government and I can protect you, man. I used to be a hacker, bruh. Earlier in the day, the Justice Department lawyers representing the Biden admin asked Kaczmarek to void his August 2021 ruling, citing the Supreme Court's decision in June to reject the legal arguments by Republican officials in Texas and Missouri that Kaczmarek upheld in his order last year. So, Remain in Mexico is over, and these people that are coming back in for their asylum claims are totally 100% going to show up for all their court dates. 100%. Alright, I think that is all we're going to do as far as news for the day. I keep missing this Amazon story about Roomba, but we're out of time on the day. So the last thing that we do on Wednesday is we talk about something that I'm either thankful for or something that restores my faith in humanity. So we're going to start with some bad news from CNBC, but then look at the counter to it from NBC Chicago. So from CNBC, higher housing costs force more pet owners to surrender their dogs. Which is F in the chat for that because, I mean, the dogs were innocent. They were picked up as a companion, probably during the commie coup, because all these little millennials said, I've always wanted a dog, and I have anxiety, and the dog helps and everything, but as we start to look here, as the rents are going up, as everything is starting, people are starting to struggle more and more as we go, people are starting to realize that dogs are really expensive. So from Christy Lela and Andrea Day, Lisa Spillman can't imagine life without her dog, an 8-year-old Chihuahua mix named Rosebud. I thought that was the sled. But she says her household expenses were getting tough to handle. Everything, rent, groceries, dog food, it's already getting really high, Spillman, 52, told CNBC, and she's not alone. According to a new survey conducted by pet care site Rover, The majority of pet parents say they're spending more on their animals than they were 6 months ago. More than 90% of pet parents in the U.S. say they have noticed an increase in pet-related costs due to inflation, up from 71%, who said the same in January, according to the survey. Rover also found that to adjust for increasing prices, pet parents are trading down things like food, treats, and accessories for their dogs. In some cases, owners have been forced to say goodbye to their furry best friends. Spillman, who lives in Tucson, was forced to move after rent skyrocketed nearly 40%. Her only option was a place that wouldn't take dogs. Losing my baby, who loves me so much, hurt very much, Spillman said. Pima Animal Care Center in Tucson is hearing more often from pet owners that they've been forced to surrender their animals because of housing concerns, such as eviction or lack of affordable housing, according to shelter director Monica Dangler. A year ago, housing-related surrenders made up 6% of the shelter surrenders, and now they make up 18%. And one thing that I do have to say, I have a friend of mine who we've grown distant, partially because of me moving away and partially because of his alcohol-fueled rage incidents, let's say. And he had a dog. I mean, this is a guy who, in spite of the fact that with all the birth defects that he has, it'd be very hard for him to come out and get hired by a pet training facility because a lot of people would look at him and run away in fear. I mean, I'm used to him, but I always forget when people meet him for the first time that there's a little bit of a shock value to seeing the kid. The kid, he's like 2 years younger than me. I don't even think that much. I think he's only a year younger than me. But in an instance of him getting kicked out of his parents' house and being in a situation like the Pima County one, he did have to surrender out his dog, Sadie, who my uncle, who was also obsessed with always having a dog around, was glad to take in, was supposed to be on a temporary basis, but given the fact that my friend had so many alcohol-related problems, when his parents did take him back, finally over the years, he came back to go get his dog back, and my uncle said no. And honestly, that was probably the best decision my uncle could have made at the situation because, you know, it's just going to come down the road again, and we know this kid is going to get kicked out of his house again, and he's going to have to go give up his dog again at some point. So it's good to have family there, and then my friend could always go over and visit the dog for a while until they moved out of my uncle and aunt moved out of the house that they lived in town. But I mean, that's not a shelter surrender. That's still, my friend had access to his dog even if she wasn't going to be living with him ever again. What's good about this, though, what really restores my faith in humanity about this, is that there are groups, especially this group in Chicago, that are doing what they can to help and to get the dogs out of the shelters and into homes that can handle and afford them, and people who really need the dog and the dogs that really need the people to match them. So let's listen from NBC5 Chicago's Clear the Shelters initiative. I said, let's
That's the mission of Clear the Shelters. NBC Universal, our parent company, also hosts an annual event partnering with shelters all across the country to raise awareness and save homeless animals. NBC5 and Telemundo are both participating in this month-long promotion, which runs through the end of August. Here is Leanne Trotter with the story of one of our partner shelters.
Just like most shelters around the country, South Suburban Humane Society is overcrowded. They recently moved into this new, bigger facility in South Suburban Matson, and within 2 days, they took in 55 pets.
As we had the parade of pets moving from the old shelter to the new, we had people here waiting to surrender their pets.
Reasons for overcrowding include the current economic climate, but also adoptions are down.
When you have more pets coming in and fewer pets going out, then you have more pets in the shelter and a longer time that they're here looking for a new home.
South Suburban Humane Society is one of dozens of shelters in the Chicagoland area participating in NBC Universal's annual Clear the Shelters month-long campaign.
We'd love to get a little breathing room around here, just get as many animals out in adopted or fostered as we can.
Adoption fees will be waived at all participating shelters on Saturday, August 27th. Check with your shelter of choice fees for hours of operation and adoption procedures. Here at South Suburban Humane Society this week, they're also waiving fees for any dog who has been here for 6 months or longer.
Even if you can't adopt an animal right now, there are other ways that you can help shelters like South Suburban Humane Society.
Donations are always needed.
We can only do what we do with donations, with volunteers, with public support. So, I think when we feel despair, I think we need to turn that into channeling what is possible and really motivating the community to get involved in a deeper and richer way.
You can also foster, which is more of a short-term commitment.
We definitely offer.
That last lady that was on screen, I think I know, which if it is who I think it is, then I'm surprised she moved out of Kenosha.
For behavioral support, advice, things like that, anything that someone would need as far as assistance to foster or adopt a dog from us.
And even if you can't do those things, you can always share information about animals up for adoption on social media.
Even if you yourself are not looking for a pet, sharing the information really does make a huge difference.
Which is what Clear the Shelters is all about, making a difference in the lives of homeless pets.
We have so many people in every community that are pet lovers. And so I have to believe that when more and more people are aware of what the issues are, then there's just more of the community coming together with animal shelters to fight the issue.
Reporting from South Suburban Matson, Leanne Trotter, NBC5 News.
Awesome.
All right, let's... All right. So with that is the fact that that Matson and South Suburban are doing this and going out with this to try to get these dogs and cats into homes that can take them. I can't take an animal, by the way. Otherwise, I might actually run down there. Southside's not that far, honestly, especially if they're doing good. Where they're waiving the fees. And it is important, especially in a place that is going to be waiving fees, to look into what you can do for donation on them as well, because they literally survive, pay their mortgage, pay their insurance, etc. on their adoption fees. That's why they have them. So to make it easier for them, yeah, they're going to put their hand out for that. And for something like that, I consider that to be a worthy cause. For them to go out and have their hand out for something like that. So unfortunately, most people have realized how expensive it is to keep a dog. But fortunately, there are organizations out there under the private sector, not under the government direction, but under the private sector, to make it easier for the people who can to get these dogs into their homes. So that does restore some of my faith back into humanity. It's lame that people have had to surrender. But it's good that there are people out there that are looking to make sure that these animals get into a good home, a good loving home. And it's also important for me to get out of here because I would really love to have an English Bulldog. I think they're cute. I would name him Nigel. All right, let's get out of here for the day. Running late for getting out of here. Where's the outro music? There it is. All right, so with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. And I actually have a couple of things I like and things that I hate for tomorrow, too. So I've already got those set up. These were set up earlier on in the week as well. But there's so much good that's still happening in the world. It makes me happy for that. But I am up on the clock here. I got to throw pants on and get myself to work here. So come back and join me here tomorrow morning when we catch up with some of the news stories that we had to pass over here. Hopefully we'll get to the iRobot one at some point because I really want to talk about that. But it will be determined by the news cycle and all the armchair lawyers out here who think that Donald Trump is guilty of sin no matter what, or innocent because he is the God Emperor of this country. There's certainly certain to be arguments about that. There's certain to be pushback from the government. We will see it all over here. Come back here tomorrow and let's parse it out, break it down, and see what's happening out there. Hope to see you there. Stick around if you're on Twitch, of course, for the raid, and we'll see you next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.